Still don't understand the complete situation here. So he definitely.
What are we gonna do with our dads, man?
Yeah, dude, it was funny because like it was after we still got more to go. After several of these incidences, it was very clear like we need to get these dads crossbows for Christmas. Like this is who it's meant for.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and I mean with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, I mean what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 103 per Nick.
Yeah.
It is, if you're listening to this, Nick tells me it's December 6th. We are filming it the week of Thanksgiving. Happy Turkey Day soon.
Yes, sir.
And it's December if you're listening to this. Holy shit. Where did November go? I feel like we were just talking about, we got so much time. It's November. It's going to get gone. She's gone.
It's quick.
You wait 11 months for 30 days, and she's gone. She leaves you just when you're starting to become attached to her, Nick.
I'm not ready to be done yet.
I know.
Yeah.
It's usually how it is. You're not ready for it to be over, and she's ready for it to be done.
Sometimes I am ready for it to be done, but speaking to the hunting season.
Oh, okay.
What you guys are talking about.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I just we had a great week in Kansas, and I as we'll I guess cover here. I was only one not to shoot, and
you passed a few though.
Yeah, no, I passed some great. We had an awesome week. But I think that I'm ready. I'll go back. I'm ready to go back. I'm not ready to be done, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll get into that discussion a little bit here.
I'm leaving.
I'm not fucking leaving.
I just watched that movie for the first time this year.
Thank God, dude, because we've been freaking talking about it like all the time.
It's
for
top
the first
5.
time.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, obviously.
It's really good.
Obviously. I'm not fucking leaving.
Why'd you watch it?
My cousin recommended it. He's like, "You ever seen Wolf of Wall Street?" I was like, "No."
We've talked about it like 13 times in this podcast, and every time you're like, "Yeah, I haven't watched it."
Kind of a central theme.
It's good. It's real good.
Yeah, agreed.
Top 2 Leo DiCaprio
watched Titanic the other day.
There's number 1.
Yeah. Did you see? Did you watch that Arnold? Did I send that to you? The Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Paint me.
Look at my boobies, Jack.
Paint me, Jack. That's funny.
That's a big customer. I expect to get what I want.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, at this point, we're in the.
Did you see that? Sorry.
We're in the November delirium. I think at this point, been rutting all month.
Well, this is just like the sad reality part of the season where it's like, seems like there's hope that you're gonna either tag out or some of these, deer are gonna
make it
live forever. Seems like they could live forever, and then wham, wham, wham. Youth gun season comes in like a hammer.
It's like Vietnam.
Yeah. All your friends just start exploding everywhere.
Yeah. Everybody's just walking through, listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival. Next thing you know, there's bombs blowing up all over the damn place. Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, you're all just like out for a stroll in the wheat fields and rice fields, and then BAM! It is gun seasons though, and I mean, it is what it is. So we just had youth season in Ohio. Sounds not necessarily a record kill, but I mean, very high kill because the weather was perfect. Mm-hmm. Leading into this week, so Kentucky's gun season's still underway. In fact, I'll be going down there tonight, hunt with the kids this week down there, and then Saturday's Pennsylvania's opener, and then Monday is Ohio's opener. So I mean, it's a 10-day stretch here. By the time you're listening to this, Ohio's gun season will be over. Kentucky's gun season will be over. Pennsylvania will be halfway over if you're listening to this. So, yeah, it's a tough thing because, I mean, I know a lot of people listening to this are gun hunting, and I think that there's still some really good chances. But, man, this late season stuff, I mean, you're tailing right here where there's still, I think, some vulnerability for some of these big bucks to get killed, especially if you're in Ohio and Kentucky on corn piles. We talked about that this weekend. And then, if you're in Pennsylvania and stuff, I mean, there's still, those older bucks are really working for the last few does. Here in the next week. Well, if you're listening to this, it's probably already over, but last part of November for sure. And it just depends on when these seasons fall, but it will fall a little bit earlier this year. And so I would assume that you'll see some bucks chasing on opening day at gun season in Pennsylvania.
For sure.
Same with Ohio.
I think, I don't know. I mean, every year, I think my perception or understanding of like deer behavior obviously grows. The more time we spend and the more cameras we run and stuff. And I mean, it seems like they're still kind of full swinging right now.
Yeah, I mean, I had not any of my mature bucks, but I had a bunch of 2 and 3 year olds crushing scrapes last night.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in daylight too, in the afternoon. So, yeah, I mean, I think that
if anything, I mean, I would say they're kind of seems like they're maybe locking down for like the first or second time.
Yes, I would say you're in this like second lockdown.
So, yeah, I mean, I would anticipate gun seasons this year will be highly fatal.
Mm-hmm. Or mortally wounded.
Yeah. Weather looks good for it, too. I mean,
Does it? So I know that at least some of the stuff I was looking at, Ohio looks good. I think
because it's going to rain.
Pennsylvania's going to rain.
Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it lets up. Then Monday's a little cold front.
Yeah, it looks wet on Pennsylvania's opener. And then I think Kentucky is going to get warm. Like, I think Thanksgiving's supposed to be like 60 degrees, which is nuts because it was like blizzard conditions when we were driving back from Kansas.
Yeah.
Weather's just been crazy, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be, food sources are critical, and finding some of those bedding areas that those bucks are still going to be cruising around are going to be critical. And I'm going to take the bow to Kentucky with me. If I get out, I'm going to just hunt with my bow during gun season down there. I've got a few bucks to go after, and then take the kids to Ohio, and then I'm kind of just focusing on late season at this point. Get through gun season with the kids and everything, and then...
Because you got basically all your tags except Kansas, right?
Correct. And talk about Kansas?
Yep.
Kansas, beer camp, as Jared called it. What was that? We were like five days deep.
And probably 4 or 5, maybe not even beers deep.
Oh, no, I believe we were several beers deep.
Maybe. We drank a lot of beer today. More than was anticipated.
We tagged
far more than we've ever done.
We tagged, with the dads.
Dang.
Well, and so what I was saying at the time that this beer camp comment came out was we had drank 4 or 5 of them, and I was like, man, it's crazy how at how did I say that? I was like, it's crazy how like you can't even get drunk at beer camp because there's so many. I was like, there's something about beer camp that just absorbs it.
They just like go right through you, Yeah. We're like, what the fuck? Yeah.
My dad did the math. I think we did
90 beers.
90 beers,
mm-hmm.
which really is not that many. It was like 5 a day per person if you level it out.
It also probably was chimed into our average kill ratio there, 1 for 4.
Maybe.
So yeah, so you and your dad got to Kansas day early. So you were there on Friday.
Friday
yep.
I don't know what the
10th
date would have been. 10th
or 11th. 11th. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Friday the 11th. So you guys were down there. You didn't hunt the morning though. You hunted the evening.
Yeah, we got it. We were early too. We had to keep making stops so that we could like get to Walmart right after it opened.
Dude, and we both experienced it a day apart, but man, that 3 to 6 shift is rough.
It sounds like you drove the whole time.
I drove the whole time.
More brutal. Yeah, I slept a little bit.
We when we were on Saturday, so we were a day behind, and we stopped at Walmart for like a grocery stop, and it was like we were right outside Kansas City. So I'd been driving for 14 hours or something straight, but I'd been up for I don't know, 36, something like that.
God.
And I like pull into the parking lot, throw her in park, and just like pass out right on the steering wheel. Like, I woke up like 20 minutes later. I'm like, where the fuck am I?
That'd be a brutal drive.
Yeah. My dad's like, I think they're open. I was like, what? Who's open?
Who are you?
What is going on? And literally, I remember like in one motion, like putting it in park and just my face like hitting the steering wheel.
That's rough.
Yeah. And it's like after like just jamming anything energy wise, like into my body,
Yeah.
it just it wasn't taking it.
Caffeine crash.
It just
His dad's
wasn't.
EpiPen.
Yeah. Yeah, it just wasn't happening. So, so anyways, you guys got there Friday morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean,
Yes, I mean,
right when the front came
We
through
got the
too.
the whole routine. We did.
You went
we
fil-
did, well, we did.
filling station?
We did. I guess that's not routine, but we did Longhorn Steakhouse
Mm-hmm.
on the way up. Which,
See, I went Cracker Barrel, which is the routine.
Yeah, that's usually we do. I don't. Dad wasn't feeling Cracker Barrel. He wanted sushi.
Get off.
He
This is
wanted-
deer camp. This is beer camp. Who gets sushi at beer camp?
Well, it was right outside of Cincinnati, and he's like, "Oh, we used to do a bunch of business trips up here and stuff." He's like, "There's a sushi place," and I was like, And ultimately, we elected for Longhorn, and I think we were pulling into the Longhorn parking lot when he's like, I think I actually got food poisoning at that sushi place one time.
Yeah, you have like 9 hours of driving left.
I
I
was
don't think
like, yeah.
I don't think gambling on the sushi is going to be the good move there.
Yeah, so we did ribeyes at Longhorn to kick it off,
Mm-hmm.
and then drove through the night. Got to Walmart at, I think they open at
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
So we got there probably an hour before and took a nap in the parking lot.
Yep.
And then went to what's that filling station called? Lies.
Filling station
Yeah, it's like Lies filling station or something.
and Yates Center.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nice. That grounded us and get Dad the Kansas
Starting to ease into it.
acclimation. It's cool. It's funny because it's like one of those local diners there where there's like a bunch of satellite tables where it's like outsiders can sit at, and then there's like a dining room table in the middle where all the farmers just rotate in and out. Like a spot frees up, one fills.
You
in.
like go and sit down, and they're like, "Get the hell out!"
Yeah,
of
oh
here.
no, I wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
Dare. But
I'll feed you to the hogs.
so that was good. We got in and got to our final destination where we were staying. Took a little nap,
Mm-hmm.
and then went out to the stand that night.
And I mean, you hit it right. So it was really warm the
perfect.
week before. Front came through Thursday night into Friday.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you guys hit it right. And you went to our, quote, famous ants stand.
Yeah.
Your dad went back behind our house at the Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a decent evening first sit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw.
It was great. Yeah, I mean, I passed a nice 3-year-old that night.
Yeah.
So I saw, I mean, kind of right away, I got settled at, I don't know, 2:30 or so. And about 3 o'clock, I started seeing does, fawns, yearling bucks. And
Mhm.
I had a nice 3-year-old come through, hit that scrape right there. And, I mean, that spot kind of declined there pretty quickly after,
Yes.
which,
I mean, we've had 2 years of build up for that spot to find either Pretty Boy or Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And
I was hopeful.
I mean, what we've kind of come to the conclusion, and whether it was the state or the neighbor, is they basically cut a trail along the cattle fence from the private, and that trail goes clear back to the parking area, which now makes it extremely easy to get back to that spot.
Yeah.
So you ended up seeing more guys than deer probably in that spot.
Yeah. Just ruined it. I've never seen a guy back there before.
I know.
mean, I know there's been guys parked at the
Mm-hmm.
parking lot before, but I've never seen a guy. And I saw, I think I had 3 different groups of guys walk under my stand, like literally under my stand. And it's like, I don't know what these guys are like looking for, because it's like they're 5 yards from me before I'm like, hey,
Well, one guy.
hey. And then they like look at my tree and I'm like, up here. And they're like, and I'm like, hey, just let you know I'm up here. And they're like, but two of those groups of guys were cool, super
Yeah.
cool. Like,
the dude who shot the 4-point was not.
no, there was this one guy that's just, I mean, I seen him from a mile off, just trouncing through the woods, just like, high stepping basically. And he just like runs all the way up to my stand there, and I stop him and I was like, hey, I'm up here. He's like, oh, looking for my deer. I was like, oh, you shoot one? Or he's like, yeah. I was like, what'd you shoot? He's like, porky. And I was like, I haven't seen anything, basically this morning. I haven't seen anything all morning. He didn't come past here. And he's like, or actually I said that first, and I was like, what did you shoot? And he's like, shot a forky. I was like, oh, actually, I was like, I did see just, a forkhorn chasing does up over here on private. He's like, that was him. And I was like, no, I was like, this deer wasn't wounded. I was like, this deer was just chasing does. And he's like, I don't know if he believed me or what, but.
Well, and he's the guy that, because I had, because this is on Sunday morning, I think. Right? Yeah.
No, I think it was Saturday morning.
No, because we weren't there yet. Was it Saturday morning?
I guess you guys rolled in Saturday morning and we're driving around. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. And so,
because I had a great first night, passed that nice 3-year-old, and then right away next day at whatever it was, 9:00, start seeing guys.
Yep. Because it was then Saturday morning because we drove by the parking area and I saw this guy sitting on his.
I saw a guy every hunt after that. So on Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Everyone.
And after Sunday morning, I was like, forget this.
Yeah, we're done.
I'm out of here.
I saw the guy sitting on the tailgate, and so Dad and I pull up. And I was like, "Hey, you seen anything?" He's like, "Yeah, shot one." I was like, "Oh yeah, what was it?" He's like, "Big forky." And I'd already talked to you. I'm like, "Oh yeah, come tell me about it, man." Just like egging this guy on. And he's like, "Yeah, some bitch back there just rattling like crazy. Doesn't he know that just scares all those bucks away?" And I'm like, maybe the 1-year-olds, but like not. No, it just scares them all away. And
he gave me that advice while I was out there. He's like, "Was that you rattling this morning?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I was hitting him this morning. And he's like, "I wouldn't do that." He's like, "Them bucks, that scares them right off." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I rattled a pretty good one in last night." And that was a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, all right," and then proceeded to walk, continuing in his direction, like deeper into where I'm hunting. And I was like, "Hey," I said, "would you mind walking out the way that you came in?" And he was like, not cool. He's like, "Well, my deer." And I was like, "He's not dead, dude." I was like, "He didn't come past this way." He's like, "Well, whatever. I'm walking this whole thing until I find him." I was like, "That's fine." I was like, "Just if you could do it that way, that'd be great." And it sounded like he didn't. He just walked back out to the parking lot where you guys were.
Yeah, he was eating lunch on his tailgate. So that's how you ended Saturday. I think your dad saw several bucks back there, which we'll get
Saturday
into.
morning.
Yeah.
Saturday night, I had the truck drive all the way in on private.
Yep.
And I called you this time because I was like, at this point, I'm like, all right, here we go again.
Yeah, because I think I was still driving at the time.
Yeah.
I was driving into the spot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So I called you. It was early on. I'd been in the stand for an hour maybe.
Yeah.
Or no, I sat all day.
Oh.
Sat all day.
You sat all day. Yep.
And so whatever it was, 2:00, 2:30, guy comes driving all the way down in this, I don't know, like a Cummins diesel or something on private, which I'm not far from the line. I'm like, 50 yards from it, and parks and gets out. And so I called you, and I was like, "Dude, this guy's going to walk right down in here. The fence cuts right down to me." I was like, "I'm just going to have you on the phone while I'm doing this. Just why not?" And I'm like looking at him through the binos, and I'm talking to you, and I'm like, "Yeah, he's definitely hunting." I was like, "He got one of them stupid green leafy suits on," and just like throwing him over his jeans type of deal. And Jeremy's like, "Crossbow," and I was like, "Yes, yep, there's the crossbow." And he's like, "Tree stand?" I'm like, I'm like, "I don't see anything." I'm like, "Dude," I was like, "Blind,
ground blind,
got a ground blind." He's carrying a ground blind on his back. I said, "This is we got a serious
and
one
a chair.
Here. We got a serious one. Oh yeah, chair, ground blind,
crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. You don't see many of those in the wild, Nick.
Huh?
More and more, unfortunately, especially on public land. But yeah, he of course, came strolling right down, flopped over the fence.
Crossed the fence with his crossbow full cocked.
Oh yeah, he was cock blocking, ready to rock. And he was the one that was like, he was under me, and I feel bad because he was a super nice guy. And I said, hey. And he's like looking, it took him like 30 seconds to find me. I'm like right here, like in the tree above him. And I said, "Hey man, just want to let you know I'm here." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was like, "It's totally fine, man.
He was cool.
It's public land, dude. You got every right to be here." He's like, "Well," I just didn't think anybody'd be back this far, I was like, "Yeah, I've been hunting.
Yeah, me either, dude.
I've been here all morning." I said, "I actually saw another guy came through here this morning." He's like, "Oh, okay." Well, and he was cool enough. He
backed out.
He backed out, went to another spot. And but yeah, so I don't know. And I guess we can backtrack because stuff's happened between now and then. But then finally the third morning, I went back into the same spot, and I was like, I'm just gonna, I don't think that guy's gonna come back in. I think the first guy knows I'm there now. I saw a good deer the first sit, So I went back in, and wouldn't you know it, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 2 guys walking the fence line down, straight to me. And
That was our Louisiana boys.
that was the Louisiana guys. And
At that point, she shot.
at that point, I was
we
like,
had to put one behind the ear on that spot after that.
yeah. And I told him too. I was like, hey, I said, no worries. First of all, it's public land. I said, you guys are the third guys that I've seen in 2 days. So I was like, I'm just pulling my stuff. And you're like, oh, okay.
And I think they had the same confidence that you had because, what did he say, the year before he killed a 150 back there?
Mm-hmm.
But that was before all of these changes were happening back there.
Yeah. So I walked out with them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Walked out to the parking lot, had to pick me up, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably never go back.
Crazy how a spot like that. I mean, it has been historically the spot for Kansas for us for 4 or 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and just some modifications, and cattle is the priority out there to keep those fences up, and that modification of clearing that fence line to make sure that they can maintain the cattle fence, changed that entire spot. I mean, shot, it's dead. Well, you want to kill a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, go for it. But you're not going to. Those mature bucks are not going to be back there right now.
Right. Well, so I guess speak to, like, you were, a day behind us essentially, just
Mm-hmm.
because of when you guys got in. So you were driving the roads while Dad and I were in for the first morning.
Yep.
And so what did you see as far as in the parking lots?
It was insane. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So we got there. We got into town probably around, I want to say 8:30. And I said, we had buried a camera, which is still there. We buried a camera deep into public between where we thought we saw probably a 160-ish 10 point and then some other shooters in the summertime when we were cruising through. So I was like, well, I'll go and pull that camera, and then there's a fence gap that you and I really like that I was going to put a cell camera on and a scrape for the duration of our hunting trip, just for as like a plan B or C for us.
And we'd roughly scouted it like July, August.
July, August, we went back through. We knew that fence gap was good. We buried a camera back there, just a regular cell camera or a regular trail camera. And so I was like, I'll go pull that. Well, we start going, and I see a few cars here and there. And as we get closer to this spot, dude, every parking lot had Kansas vehicles in it, like resident Kansas vehicles. And given, yes, it's Saturday morning, but we always arrive on Saturday morning, always.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we see people, but normally they're out-of-staters, and normally not nearly as much. In fact, I think I counted 22 Kansas vehicles between where I was going to try to pull that camera, and I didn't because there's 2 cars parked there, and where you were at. Not to mention the out-of-state vehicles that were around too.
Wow.
And so, we've kind of talked to some locals since then, and it's gotten bad. And it's a lot of Wichita, a lot of people coming from Wichita over that way to hunt, and just, in their words, shoot, the first deer that they see. Just fun. It's public land, I guess. But it's definitely also because the pressure of out-of-staters has come in leasing property, which has displaced a lot of your Kansas residents. So that the Kansas residents are forced to hunt public because the non-residents have come in and leased, land that normally was just open for whoever to hunt. So, yeah, it was, again, we always see, and usually it is that Saturday and Sunday and it dies off, but I've never seen that many vehicles. Every parking lot from point A to point B was filled with trucks. So, the pressure was just immense. Now, given it was great weather, in terms of how it came on, but from a public standpoint, it was as busy as Southern Illinois was last year to us. And that was the place that we said we would never go back again.
Mm-hmm.
As we got into the week, it died off, but there was always vehicles in key spots.
What morning was it that you were getting pictures of the guy in the flat?
That was Saturday morning as well when I was coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the spot I was going to hunt. So this is how it all kind of transitioned. So all these guys were everywhere. We knew where your dad was going. We knew where my dad was going.
And we're split. We've got 30% of our stuff is on public.
Yeah, the dads are going to private land.
But
we knew that.
On private.
And so you and I were going to hunt public. In fact, that's where I killed this deer.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really have a good deer down there. It's just, I know it's a good rut spot. And so it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and here's Crossbow Joe with a freaking headlamp on, a Carhartt jacket, and blue jeans, stalking back and forth in front of my trail camera 7 times over a 2-hour period. Like just walking back and forth twice with his headlamp on, and it's 9 a.m. Like I could see the light on. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And he's just stalking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's like, clearly that spot is shot to shit. And like, I would assume he just thinks he's going to jump him and, you know, jump shoot him like a rifle. I don't know. And so I'm like, okay, well, you and your dad are sitting all day.
That's what I don't understand is, are these guys killing deer that way?
No, they're
like
wounding.
You see so many guys do that.
Wounding them, for sure. I mean, definitely throwing an arrow. No, or a bolt, no doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I know that there are people that actually are like, they crossbow hunt. They're good people. Like, I'm not saying these are the guys that give you all a bad name. Like, you're literally walking around like you're rifle hunting. You look like an idiot. I mean, and you are.
I told you that one guy looked like he was dressed as a crossbow hunter for Halloween. Like it was like literally the depiction of like if they would sell one of these things at the Halloween stores. It's like the guy's about 150 pounds overweight. Like he's got this like old school camo and his ball cap and his face mask pulled up under his eyes, like walking to his. He probably doesn't have a destination. Just walking hoping to kick one up.
Yeah, and it's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, just stop. Like, you're not rifle hunting. Like, that's fine if you want to still hunt when you're rifle hunting. You're not. Like, if you want to be considered a bow hunter and you're a crossbow guy, like, act like a bow hunter. Don't act like a rifle guy. The reason that we bitch about it or we give people a bad name that are crossbow guys is because of this exact scenario. You're walking around unethically. You're screwing other people's hunts up. So I don't care if you want to say, well, it's public land, dude. I can do what I want. Cool. Have some freaking hunter ethics. Don't be an asshole. It's archery season. Nobody else is. No compound guys are just walking around blowing through bedding areas trying to jump shoot something. Like, just it's just unethical at that point. And so whatever. That spot shot to shit. So we have a lease 50 minutes from camp that we picked up this year. And it was like,
dude, it's just a shame. It just sucks for everybody. Like,
yeah, well, that's
even,
what I'm saying.
Even those, not just even the crossbow thing, but it's like, dude, people, you go hunting to like, especially.
Well, and I'll say it's not only just crossbow guys. The guy who came up and shot the Forky was shooting the Matthews.
Yeah.
Is that a dig? Oh, okay. But like, he's an idiot. You're not gonna listen. I understand that there have been spot and stock successes in every state, right? And especially a state like Kansas. That said, you can easily watch a guy and say, that dude doesn't know how to spot and stock shit. Like, he's stomping around. You can hear him from 1.5 miles away, right? He's not spotting and stalking anything. He's just an idiot.
Well, that's why I asked, like, are people successful? Because, like, I think we feel that way about it, but like so many people, are doing it. Do they?
No way they're successful.
Yeah, but do people think that's how you? People think that's how you hunt.
They think that because they gun hunt. Their success comes from gun season.
Yeah,
and so that's how they're applying their same hunting tactics in archery. Whether it's a crossbow or a recurve or a compound, doesn't matter.
Well, regardless, I mean, it sucks for everybody to have to see people when you're hunting.
I mean, here's the thing.
That's the worst.
We have all walked in on somebody in a stand and said, oh, shit, sorry, dude. And you feel, if you have ethics, you feel bad that you fucked up their hunt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You walk out, you almost like tuck your tail slumping out because you're like, damn it.
First of all, I mean, I don't know how far you take it, but like I wouldn't dare walk into public land like at 8:30 on a Saturday morning. Like I know people.
Where there's cars parked.
There's 4 trucks parked at the thing. Like if I walk into this woods, I'm going to blow everybody's hunt.
Ethics.
And so that's step 1.
Per the reason, like
step 2, I mean, be diligently looking like for sign. Like see if the boots tracks are going this way or like.
Oh, dude, now you're over the top. Nobody's looking at that shit.
Anything. Like you come up on somebody's camera, like be looking in the trees for look for somebody waving. If you hear somebody rattling, it's not a buck fight. Somebody is.
Yeah, well, I mean that's
rattling.
why on Saturday morning when I drove up there, like it's 250 yards from the place where I would park to our camera. There's 2 trucks there. There's boot tracks going in the trail. Did I go in there? No. Of course not. It's 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Those guys are in there hunting. I'm just walking in to get a trail camera. I'm not going to go and screw them up. So no, I didn't go in there. I didn't walk in and bust up their hunt. But that's ethics. That's just common ethics. Did I want to get that camera and set up a camera to start our hunt? Absolutely, man. That was part of our plan going in there. Guess what? Plans change. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there'll be a lot of people that say, screw it. It's public land. I'm just going to go in there and do it anyways. And that's rude.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is where, like, you want to talk about divisiveness in the hunting community. It's there because people are just assholes. And to your point, 2 of those people felt really bad about walking in on you.
Yeah, super nice guys. I mean,
and that's how it should.
Yeah,
they
didn't know. They
didn't know.
They didn't do anything wrong.
And none of them did anything wrong, but it's the reaction of 2 of them versus the other one.
Yeah.
2 of them's reaction was, dude, so sorry, didn't mean to screw it up, da-da-da-da-da. The other one is...
The Matthews guy was a total prick.
Exactly. And when you have that kind of stuff...
When I was trying to help him out, he should have I told him the deer didn't come past. I'm like, dude, I can see 300 yards in every direction.
Yeah, let me narrow down your search here.
Yeah, I was like, he didn't come through here. I was like, I would look closer to the river.
So, yeah. So, I mean...
He was just hell-bent on walking the whole woods. Like, he wasn't looking for blood. He wasn't looking for anything.
No.
I'm not convinced he actually shot one.
Yeah, me either. Yeah. I'm convinced he slung an arrow, but that was it.
Yeah.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
So, anyways, Saturday morning, yeah. So then I get this crossbow guy back and forth in front of my camera. There's 2 other cars parked there. Like, that spot's shot. I'm just like, and again, it's you're having this experience.
We should be clear too. I mean, there's like absolutely no entitlement from our standpoint saying like, hey, we scouted these spots on public land and
I don't give a shit.
We have them dead to rights. Like, absolutely not. But it's just discouraging to like put so much work into a spot and into getting out to a state, into a certain place. I mean, it's not a small thing.
Well, yeah, and it's public
and
land.
then to see people, it's not at all their fault. It's just, man, like this is not what you set out to do.
It eventually got better in that spot. But those mature bucks, the bucks that I'm chasing, don't tolerate that stuff at all. So they're
got better at the ants?
No, at the flat.
Oh.
There were less people there as the week went on.
Anyways. Yeah.
And I would drive by to see, but
my spot didn't get any better. We kept getting pictures of guys
every day guys.
Week.
Yep. And we never saw a mature buck on that camera.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that
the only one would have been that night, the first night that I got in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That would have been it.
He was a nice deer too.
Yeah. So then I put my dad in that spot, and then I drive the 50 minutes to our new lease, which we really didn't have any. We didn't have anything on it. Like, I mean, we didn't have any deer on it.
Just kind of like, where else do we go?
Yeah, where else do we go?
Dude, it's really amazing how, it can seem like, well, we've got several good spots, but when you consider whatever it is,
thousands of acres
wind,
of public
pressure, a number of guys in our camp,
it narrowed down fast.
Narrows it down pretty quick.
And we'll talk about this a little bit. We underestimated one of our spots, which in hindsight would have probably ended up being really good for us. But so I drive out there. I don't know. I get in my stand at like 3 o'clock, a little after 3 o'clock, probably, and stiff northwest wind in the face. Like, I like the spot. We had pre-hung a hawk stand in the summertime. There's cattle in there. That's the only downfall. But it's thick and it's gnarly looking. I felt like any day we expected a giant to walk through there, and frankly, they just didn't. But it was probably, I did a rattling sequence, and called in this freaking like 1-year-old spike, which at this point in the season, besides I'd seen a 6-point with Harlan behind the house, I literally, the 2 bucks I had seen on stand all season were 1.5-year-old spikes with about a 1.5-year-old or 1.5-inch spike on its head. That's the 2 bucks I'd seen in Ohio and Kansas. I hadn't seen a single buck besides that. And it was just like, what the hell? You know, and so this deer's walking behind me and screwing around. It's probably like about 4 o'clock. I crack the horns really hard and just a little bit of a grunt sequence. And I thought I heard a grunt. Like, what the fuck? But it was back, and my truck's parked, 150, 200 yards?
Mm-hmm.
It's back towards my truck. And I was like, and the road's over there. I'm like, well, that's weird. Didn't hear anything. Nothing came through. I did a couple other grunts on the buck roar. And I could hear it. I could hear it. And it sounded like, it almost sounded like a tending grunt. Like I thought maybe he had a doe with him. And I'm like, okay. And I thought he was in the property, but he could have also been on the neighbor's property because I'm not far from the line. And I could hear some leaves moving. I could hear maybe he was like raking a tree or something. So I grunted another like decent grunt at him, and he snort wheezes back. And I'm like, all right, we're in the game at this point. And I have no idea what the hell it is though. And it's probably like 2 minutes, and then I could hear him stiff walking like up above me, and then stopped, and it was probably 2-3 minutes. I didn't hear anything. And so I just kind of did a back grunt and just like sound like it was going away from him. And I mean, I heard him running and saw him he was on the other side of the fence to the north, jumped the fence line. And when he jumped the fence line, I don't know, and again, I'm in Kansas, right? So I'm looking at antlers. I'm like, 3-year-old probably, you know? And so I wasn't going to shoot him. I had my bow in my hand, but I wasn't going to shoot. And then he kind of turned. And the one thing I noticed about this deer was like, had like the shortest Roman nose of like any deer I've ever seen. Like his head was just like round and neck was giant. And his body was like big, but he wasn't like filled out either. And so I'm like staring at this deer, and I mean, he's freaking pacing hard. He's grunting, he's looking for a fight. And like something in my head finally clicks, like, dude, that's a mature buck. Like, you need to shoot this deer. And so he starts coming in, and he makes a little loop. We had a rope-a-dope scrape there, and I thought he was going to hit that scrape. And so I went in full draw on him.
Has anything hit that scrape?
No, nothing. Nothing's touched it. Cows. And so I went in full draw at like 25 yards, and then he like beelines and turns and starts coming towards me. And so I'm about to pull a Jared and tuck it between his shoulder and his neck. And just like, I bet it's at like 22 yards. I don't know what he did. I think he was going to turn into the cedars, but he just kind of like exposed his shoulder just a little bit to me. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And just tunk. And he did not like it. I mean, I buried half an arrow in him with that rage. And then he whipped out, and it was so fast, dude. I saw him whip out, and like he went into the cedars, and the next thing you know, I just heard like a thud. And I was like, shit, is he dead already? And like didn't hear anything. So I was like, I knew I put a good shot on him. And so I waited, like, I think I called you, or I texted you guys, and then you called me, I think.
I called you.
Yeah.
I said, I want to hear you shake.
Yeah, and I was shaking. I was all worked up. And I was like, I couldn't believe like it happened that fast. Mm-hmm. And so I wait like a half hour, 45 minutes, get down, walk over to where I shot. I knew where my arrow was. And at first I got a little concerned because it was sitting up. And so I was like, Jesus, I was like, that's a lot of arrow. Like that's still sitting there. Because I haven't seen the deer. It's pretty thick where he went. And I went over, and I had about 8 inches of blood on the arrow, but it also had broke off probably 6 or 8 inches on him. And I think I only walked like 4 steps, and I saw like just a few drops of blood. And then I looked up, and I could see white belly. I mean, he was 25 yards. And
He probably did just flop right over.
Oh, dude, he didn't bleed much. Like by the time he stopped, I mean, there was blood everywhere, but I mean, he didn't even bleed much. I mean, I buried it through the closed shoulder and buried it in the opposite side shoulder. Just tore him apart. But, yeah, I mean, he died quick. And, so then once I got up on him, I was like, yeah, this is an old deer. And so I don't know how old he is. I pulled the incisors, and so I have him for the deer age thing I'm going to send off. But, my guess is he's at least 7 or 8. Could be older. But he's just funky looking. So, yeah, just got like a cool, this is the side that I saw coming in. Like, he's got this cool, like, double main beam on the one side. But he's not, like, I mean, he's just would have been a standard 8-point. And he's not overly massive or anything. I think I scored him at like 126, and that's only because he's got, 15 or 16-inch main beam here.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a cool deer, though.
Yeah, big, heavy, gnarly deer. In fact, at this point, I had been up for 42 hours straight. I couldn't get him in the truck myself. I was trying to get him in the truck. I had freaking ratchet straps on this deer. I couldn't do it, dude. I just like collapsed on the ground and was like, fuck. So I had to call Jared to like come and help me put him in the truck.
Just drive an hour one way. I was like, you can't get your deer in your truck?
Yeah, I was like, I can't get him in the truck. He's too big. But yeah, so it was cool, man. I mean, that was fast and like, that's obviously like we love shooting big bucks, but I mean, just going out there to kill an old mature deer. And this could be like the oldest buck I ever killed, possibly. We'll figure it out. I know that.
That's really the goal. I don't know that either one of us have like an antler goal in mind. Like, yeah, we like to shoot big antler deer, but the objective is to shoot mature deer. And, if we know of several large antlered mature deer, we'll pass on. Well, that's some smaller antlered mature deer.
That's the tough thing, I think, this year is even though we had cameras out, we didn't really have target deer on camera going into the hunt. They just weren't on camera. And so, when you're going in, I mean, your goal is to kill a mature buck. I mean, that's at least our goals. Maybe dads are a little bit different than us, but, I'm just looking to kill a mature deer. And, this is the guy that gave me the opportunity on the first night. And it was a cool hunt. I mean, the way that he came in and was all freaking rawed up and I felt good to put a great shot on him, and just bury that arrow in him. And, that was it. 52 minutes into the hunt, and I'm like, tagged out, baby. Tags punched.
Heck yeah, man.
And so, again, we're going into one of our better weather weeks, and the cool thing was, normally it's so warm, like I can't, we're processing fast. Like we let this thing hang for 3 or 4 days because it's so nice. I didn't have to rush, which was necessary as we get in here to the next segment of tracking deer in Kansas. It was nice to just have this deer hanging, and then I could process them and keep them out whenever. And Jared's going to take them up to Trav's place, which this is the other buck. I don't know if we had this one on the podcast yet. This is the public land buck I killed in 2020 there, which Jared and I were just talking pre-pod. Like, this deer is deceivingly big.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about him, but he's just
I've got the tape here. We should do it again before we leave. I know we got him at 157.
Mm-hmm.
Never hurts to redo it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's weird because it's like you wouldn't guess that. You'd think, I don't know, mid-40s, 150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's his beams that are deceivingly big.
Yeah, he's got. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to like. He's deceivingly big.
Yeah. So his beams, I think, are like 20, 25 and something.
Yeah, it's a stud.
Yep.
They both are.
Yep. So yeah, that was exciting because then it's like, okay, first real night in deer camp, and we've got a tag punched. We got a tag punched.
Yeah.
And so it was like ripping and roaring at that point. So Sunday morning, I take Dad back into his spot. Your dad's hunting the same spot he was in. You're still hunting the ants. And I don't know what time it was, but it was pretty early.
Like 8:30.
Yep. Your dad texted and said he just shot a big one. And so I'm up at camp, right, 250 yards from him. And so, and this is kind of the bow hunter's reaction, right? I think his first reaction was it was high. He kind of said high lung or something like that was his first reaction. And typically, and this is no knock on this is any bow hunter, right? Whatever your first reaction is when you let that arrow go and you see it hit is probably the right one, because you'll talk yourself into a better shot as the time passes. But like if you shoot and you're like, ooh, it's back, it was back. You may talk yourself into, well, maybe it's liver, maybe it was a lung, it's back. And it's just because, the more time that goes on, the more you want to will yourself to have made a better shot than it actually was. And so for your dad, that first time it was, and we don't know how high, but it was high. And we gave it almost 2 hours. I think the first time we tracked it.
Yeah.
Walked right down.
Well, because he thought it was a dead deer.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, all right, well, let me, I'd like, let's all go out and recover it together. I'll get down, my spot shot. So I was like, I'll get down. That was the day I pulled.
And that was the day, we picked you up.
So I pulled my setup, you picked me up. And so, like you said, by that time, it was 2 hours later.
You going to pick me up? You going to pick me up?
And we had celebratory beers in the backpack. We were like, oh, it's, dead deer. Let's go get them.
Beer camp.
Let's go get them. And I think, he had made the comment, like, if anything, it's touch high. But, I mean, I smoked him. I think
35 yards, came in chasing a doe,
35,
working scrape.
30?
Yep, working scrapes. Perfect. The way that it worked its way in.
I said he followed a doe in, and he stopped on his own, broadside.
Yep, staring, locked in the doe. Didn't think it reacted.
Dude, it's hard to prepare. I mean, this is the unfortunate reality of...
Your dad's not a wounder, from what it sounded like.
No. Yeah, I mean, no. It's just it's hard to prepare somebody for like that moment.
Ugh.
As much as you can tell them like, hey, there's big bucks in Kansas. Hey, be ready. It's gonna happen. Hey, practice. Hey, here, do these things.
When it all comes together,
there's no way to like. You have to go and experience it and do it. And I think that's just what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You get excited in the moment, and things happen, and there's so many factors that can impact the shot that you make, like whether it's the cold weather or the amount of gear that you're wearing, or the tiredness that you're feeling from driving, or just like the displacement from being away from home, or like just all these things that like you have to have under control in a moment like that, like a high pressure moment, to be able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what is frustrating for just to hear people talk about, I guess, killing deer. It's like, dude, it's not enough to just practice and be in a good spot. Like, you have to kill the deer. Like, once he's in bow range, you have to be able to keep it together enough to kill a big mature buck.
Well,
and that's way easier said than done.
And I will say, at least, and I mean, it's a lot of these big mature bucks, but in Kansas especially, dude, these deer experience extremely difficult environmental conditions. From like super heat in the summer to like brutal blizzards in the winter. Like, these deer are just freaking tough, and they're built like tanks. I mean, there was a reason I couldn't, one, I'm not Jared, but there's another reason I couldn't get that deer in the truck, is he was a toad, it was probably 200 pounds field dressed. And so, I mean, these deer are just built differently. And we talked about it, like some of these 2 and 3 year olds, I think if you put a half decent shot on them, they'll just ball up and give up and die somewhere. These mature bucks will not. We've talked about it before. These deer just have to survive. They've got nothing else to do.
Not just even like the reaction to the shot, or like just to literally encounter a big mature Kansas, or like a Midwestern, like it's truly. It's like a life-changing experience to be 20, 30 yards from a 5-year-old plus mature Midwestern buck, like in broad daylight. It's just like one of the craziest things ever. And to think about, executing this thing that you've practiced like over and time again, like it's just like for it to come together, like you just really have to have your wits about you. It's a difficult thing to do. I mean, that's why, we love bow hunt so much.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a one of the most highly regarded sports, or it's, unfortunately one of the reasons that we are like, when it comes to guns and crossbows, it's like, I don't know how you don't kill one. Like it's,
sure.
But so, I just have a lot of respect for people that can, and we know a few of them that can have
a lot
mastered like their self-control and the ability to hold it together in a moment like that, to not move, to be able to read the deer's, body language tells you so much, to be able to pull your bow back and execute this thing you've practiced so much. It's a very, very, very difficult thing to do. And when you factor in traveling 16 hours out of state,
Sure.
in 20-degree temperatures, it's just,
Yeah, just
the stakes are high.
New settings and stuff. And so, I mean, we got down there, and I mean, we found pretty good blood right away. In fact, it went into the same thicket that my dad's buck died in 2018. And so, I think we all would have been pretty confident that deer laid down in there and was dead. And as luck would have it, I mean, we went on a pretty much a wild goose chase, to where we lost blood within the first, 200 yards. And almost randomly, you picked it up on the riverbank quite a ways away.
Definitely randomly.
Yeah, and this deer basically just ran the riverbank back and forth, bedded multiple times on it. We ended up finding a lot of blood on that riverbank. And to this day, your dad and I went back. We followed more, found more beds. We went across the river thinking he crossed the river and was dead over there. Nothing. I mean, I still believe that deer maybe went in the river and never surfaced. Like he died in that river and drowned and just hasn't floated back up yet. Because other than that, there was no way that deer got out of one of those bed points and didn't drop blood to where we found him coming out of the beds. Just wasn't possible. And so, the unfortunate thing was, I think, just back and forth. I think we ended up doing like 6 miles looking for that deer. Multiple days, 6 miles, just couldn't find them. And so your dad had to make the difficult decision to saddle back up, basically. And that's what happens. You at least put a hell of an effort into tracking that deer, and,
I guess, what we give him, a day and a half, basically.
Yeah, we gave him over a day and a half.
He shot him in the morning. We started tracking
full
it
day.
At 11.
Mm-hmm. Half day the next
that
day.
Full day, and then the whole next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least a day and a half. Yeah.
And at some point, it's like, where else can you go? We've covered everything that we can. We've got no.
We gridded. We followed blood. We backtracked blood. We searched the opposite side of the river. We've walked the river numerous times. Like, he's just.
And at the end of the trip, did it again. Walked the whole river to see if he surfaced, and
couldn't find him. So yeah, I was like, hey, sucks, but you're gonna have to saddle back up and get in. So that's what we did.
That's a hard decision to make too. Yeah. Like it's hard. It's not. It's
especially because it sounded like a stud.
Yeah, and it sounded like he was confident in the shot, and the blood that we saw early on. That deer went and bedded within the first 100 yards.
It was definitely a lung hit. We found lung blood for sure. Yeah. It just probably single lung, maybe high single lung, and those deer just survive on single lungs. They just do. And it's not the first deer that has survived on single lung.
Not forever. Like, that deer's probably dead, we think, but.
I don't know, man. Probably. I think that deer lost enough blood because your dad shot him with a rage. I think that deer lost enough blood that he drowned in the river.
Yeah.
And he just never made it out. Yeah. And that river's deep. Kev was telling us in spots that's 20 feet deep, and he just sunk to the bottom. And
that's terrifying to think about, that 20 feet deep, like them big channel cats in there.
Just filled up with water. He's got a big hole in his side filling up with water. Plus, he's probably inhaling water. He's out of energy. So I think he died in the river, and there's nothing you can do about it. We never did find an arrow, which is crazy. But yeah, and that's just how it is. So your dad saddled back up, and I guess it was Tuesday morning. So we ended up getting a giant on camera where my dad was hunting. A legit, very close to booner, I would say. Mm-hmm. And he was in there like right before I got my dad in that stand. And so I want to say it was like 7 o'clock or something. My dad calls and he lets one fly.
Yeah.
And,
it's like the dads are flinging at this point. It was really nice to have you tagged out at that point, because I was, I could keep hunting, and you were free to go and help track.
Yeah, I was the dog for the week.
Yeah.
So I went and saw Dad. Still don't understand the complete situation here. So he
What
definitely.
are we gonna do with our dads, man?
Yeah, dude, it was funny because like it was after we still got more to go. After several of these incidences, it was very clear like we need to get these dads crossbows for Christmas. Like this is who it's meant for. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. So in retrospect, we figure out that my dad used
don't go in retrospect.
he used the wrong pin.
Yeah.
So it was a 30-yard shot, 28-yard shot. He used a 40-yard pin.
Was it that far?
Yep. He used a 40-yard pin, thinking he had a 10, 20, 30 pin, of which I educated him and said nobody's had a 10-yard pin since 1995.
Well, here the way that it happened was
he's been shooting single pins.
you guys went out and looked. You went. He's like,
well, he said,
was it a good shot? And he's like, yeah, I'm free. He's like, folded him in half.
Folded in half. He said the deer literally kicked, like rear kicked and like wheeled backwards, like folded, wheeled backwards, and then just boom across this bean field.
Yeah, like he felt like he crushed him. He's like, I held right on.
And he
it.
said,
It
I
felt
heard
like a
the
perfect
shot. Like, I mean, it made solid contact.
So you guys went and looked.
No arrow.
And just basically couldn't find anything.
No blood.
Yeah, no arrow, no blood.
Nothing.
Walked it out for the 70, 80 yards that he saw him run.
Yep. And then I said, screw it. Let's not push this deer. Like, I don't know where you hit. I don't know. Let's just get out. And I think it was probably a 3-year-old 8-point. Although that deer showed back up and he's fine, so I don't know what deer it was.
Yeah.
So we pull out, and
I think it's hilarious that these
we probably give it
neither of them
more.
have any idea what deer they shot.
Yeah. It's like
it seems to be the hardest thing. Whenever people see big deer, they have no idea what they saw.
Just a big deer.
I'm like, was it an 8?
And the day
was it an
before-
8-point, a 10-point? They're like, big.
The morning before, he had a doe out in front of him, and this buck slid in behind him and just right underneath his stand, 5 yards, and he could not get that deer to stop. And he said it was a big buck and chased up. Not the.
He's like, I thought it was a damn horse coming down the hill.
Yeah. And so it was like 2 hours later. I said, okay, let's give it 2 hours. About 11, we go back out there.
Well, so at that point, that's when we asked him, right? Because you shot the bow. Yeah, because you're like, I'm gonna shoot your bow and just make sure it's on. Because you guys apparently have the same draw length and stuff, ish.
Yeah, and so I shot it like 20 yards. It was a little bit high.
Yeah, because
I used the second pin, and I was like, wait a minute, that's 30. And then that's when we realized it was 20 and in, 30 and in, 40.
So you asked him, you're like, hey, I'm shooting high on all these pins. What are your pins set at? He's like, 10, 20, 30.
And I was like,
is it because it's a brand new Hoyt? I was like, you're shooting 60 pounds, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, nobody's had a 10-yard pin since
95 shooting double X75s.
Yeah. So I think we figured.
So the bottom line was he shot high. When we went back out, we searched for blood for a while, and I literally found a dead mouse carcass.
We said that too. He's like, well, that explains it.
Yeah, that'll do it. And so I don't know what deer he shot. I don't know where the air. Emily asked me, she's like, well, where's his arrow? I said outer space, because like I have no idea. And it sucks again, because it's like, man, again, I think I put 3-mile loops on. I mean, every which place that deer could have been, and there was no deer, there was no blood. At this point, I'm still not convinced that he didn't just shoot high and miss it, and that arrow just deflected into cyberspace. Because I mean, if he would have put it in the neck or the back or something, there's blood, and so I call it non-lethal, but it could have easily been a miss, and that we just didn't find the arrow. It just deflected off to who knows where. The only thing that puts me in a weird perspective there is the way that he said the deer reacted, which sure sounded like a hit. So at the end of the day, I don't know. But again, we kind of gave everything that we could to find that deer or find anything. I assume it's non-lethal, not a big deal, no blood, or a miss. And so on the way back, it's like 11:30. Your dad writes me and says, "Shot another one."
Yep.
And I was like, okay.
All right.
At this point, the dads are slinging. I'm ready for day beers.
The text was, "Ugh, hit another one."
Yeah, hit another one. And then it was, well, what would the shot look like? And he said, not good. And so it's like, oh God. And at this point, Jared and I realized that we completely have blown the week in that the spot his dad's in is this corridor, and we've completely underestimated it.
And can easily hold another guy.
I mean, his dad's seeing $6-7 a day in this bottom, and he's not even in the best spot, probably. So we pull your dad out, and we say, okay, based on past experience, well, first off, we find out he shoots the deer facing him and tries to tuck it in the brisket shoulder.
So I mean, at that point, I was like, all kinds of hard lessons being learned here. But like, he rattled the deer in, so it was already high alert. It was looking for him, and it sounds like it cut across this tram road, and he stopped it. Like, and you know, if I have any bull in a china shop in me, I get it from my dad. But stopped it like,
yeah.
And the thing was like scared the crap out of him and stopped and stood and stood right facing him. And I think he just put it on the center of his chest. And I mean, at that point, I think he was kind of panicking. He's just like,
well, he's already in full draw. It's 30 yards. The deer is on high alert looking at him. So when he released, he said the deer wheeled. There was optimism a little bit in that, based on what he said from an arrow penetration standpoint, that it could have got into lung and heart, maybe.
Maybe.
So we backed him out for 4 hours. I dropped you and my dad off, or you went out to the lease. I dropped my dad off hunting, and then your dad and I went back down tracking number 2. And dude, I followed blood for 650 yards, and it was not easy blood either. It wasn't even like the first deer. I mean, it was trickle. And we basically ran out of light past what we call the tram stand. And, I did a couple circles, and I was like, listen, no beds in the first 650 yards ain't looking good. Like, not enough blood loss. Like, I would assume that it was more of a muscle shot than anything. And so we pulled out, and so that's on Tuesday night.
I don't keep track of days.
Yeah.
They're all blended together.
Pulled out on Tuesday night, and then, so then Wednesday, because then he was like, well, what do I do? And we didn't go in and look. I wrote him off. I said, no, I think that deer's alive. And so I put your dad back in the stand Wednesday morning. Put my dad in the stand. You go back to the lease again, because there is a decent buck that shows up, although at this point he's broken himself up.
Did he ever show back up?
No.
Really?
Never. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was a 150-inch 9-point.
Yeah.
But he had broke himself up by this point when you were hunting. And so I think Wednesday was fairly slow. I don't think anybody really saw.
I saw like one deer.
Yeah.
In like 16 hours hunting at least.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really saw anything Wednesday.
Felt like I was in the big woods.
Thursday got interesting. So Thursday morning, again, we're underestimating the place. Thursday morning, you go and hunt the lease again, I think. I take my dad to his spot. Your dad goes to his spot. Your dad's sitting all day.
What was our last day?
Thursday was the last full day. Friday was the morning day.
So I jumped over to public.
Yep.
Wednesday night.
Yep. And so Thursday morning you saw...
Wednesday night I had a shooter come in.
Yep.
Catch my win.
Oh, caught your win. And then Thursday morning we posted it on Instagram. You filmed that really good. I guess 3-year-old?
Yeah, it's a 3-year-old.
Giant 3-year-old.
Yeah.
High 140s as a 3-year-old.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
All over it, dude.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
High 140s?
I bet.
I'll give him like mid-30s.
No way. We posted on our Instagram.
We'll post. I'll post the thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, standard 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Nice 3. He had a kicker, so I mean that was cool.
Yeah. Which we still don't know if he would have been split on that backside, but yeah, I mean, good deer, cool encounter. He had a 2-year-old behind him that like snort wheezed and.
Oh, it was definitely a cool encounter. I mean, he made me think about it for a second. I was like, should I shot that deer?
Yeah, according to our Instagram audience, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel
you were good with it.
I'm really happy with the pass. I mean, that's not what I went there to kill.
Sure.
And,
well, and it almost paid off because I mean, so we pull you and my dad out, and then Thursday afternoon, your dad's sitting. I went down and checked the tram camera or stand because you were going to go into that stand. I saw a few small bucks doed up, and as you're walking in Thursday afternoon, you see a frickin' giant.
Yeah, bedded like 100 yards from Dad's stand.
So I mean, he literally.
Well, I didn't just see him; I bumped him. I was walking into my stand and bumped him out of this open ditch.
100 yards behind your dad. I had already walked. I was on the other side of the tree line, but I had already walked all through there. I'm sure he was bedded in there when I was walking through there. And I mean, you're talking high 60s, right?
At least, so. Yeah, stud.
Yeah, and I still don't understand how that deer didn't get past your dad.
I don't either.
Because I mean, it went right to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got situated and thought for sure he would come through there, but just young bucks, basically.
Yep.
But at that point, we realized like we should have had somebody in that stand all week.
After we'd spent 3 days walking the whole property, just trouncing all over it.
Mm-hmm. And you also spotted a lighted knock from your stand that night.
Yep.
Which was your dad's second arrow.
That was the last night.
Yeah.
Last night we were there and it got dark and I was like, after it got dark, I look out like 100 yards. I can see this green thing glowing. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Jesus.
And I mean, it's glowing. It's not like a reflection. And so I throw my binos up and I see it. I'm like, that's alumina. Like it's got to be. There's nothing else it could be. And I didn't want to. I was planning on hunting the spot the following morning, so I didn't want to just go walk down in there that night and see what it was. And it was cold. So I mean, if there was a deer on the other end of it, it would have been fine the next day. But what was weird is when I looked at it through the binoculars, like it seemed like it was moving a lot, like more than not like deer movement either, like fluttering, like almost like it was laying on tall grass or
sure,
so the wind was blowing it. And I couldn't tell for sure if it was just like the shake of my binos at 100 yards or if it was actually moving or what. But so Dad was all distraught that we didn't want to go look at it that night. I'm like, well, I'm hunting that spot in the morning, so I was like, it'll be there, first thing. It's not going anywhere.
Sure.
And so it was, I went out and I hunted that morning till 8:30, and then I got down and went and looked over and I found that arrow from the second deer, unscrewed at the ferrule. So, which leads me to believe that it was buried in
some sort of bone,
shoulder bone, or something. And as he ran, it just unscrewed the arrow and threw it out. And
we got a picture of a good 8-point the day after we left on the tram
that he feels confident was the second deer.
Yeah. And I mean, he looked fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, hopefully, that would be my best guess. Is that I think we're on the same page. I think that first year probably died. Maybe into the river, or I don't know where these things go, but we weren't able to recover him despite our best efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And that second year, I believe is probably fine.
It's just muscle
stuck a broadhead in him, and
Yeah.
he's out there running.
Yep. And
we don't know about Dad's. Maybe same deal. Arrow broke, shoulder.
Probably. I was thinking high back or neck or something like that. I mean, something where there wasn't a lot of blood. But again, we've got cameras there, so we'll wait to see if something shows up with an arrow in it.
Yeah.
Or miss, possible still because of the pin. So, yeah, man. I mean, and that was Kansas trip. It was a lot of fun. Weather was perfect.
No doubt.
We had a blast. Yeah, we had a good camp. Filled one tag. Seems classic that our shot ratio is high and our tag filling's low.
Yeah. It happens.
Just how it seems to happen in Kansas. But yeah, I mean, we leave there with a little bit more knowledge. A little bit down on the pressure, especially because some of the locals are telling us how they're really seeing it affecting some of the deer around there. And that's what makes Kansas so special is that like it's just awesome hunting and big old mature bucks and big deer country. And, the more pressure that area gets, the less likely that's going to always be. So we'll have to keep monitoring on that situation and see what happens. But, in the end, we killed a mature buck. We saw several. We saw a couple big ones. And, could have easily came home with 3 tags filled, not just one.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. I wish you could change it. I wish that dads had.
I thought for sure we'd find that first one. I just, that's how it worked out. But so, anyways, it is you're listening to this December 6th, right, Nick? So, I mean, we're through Thanksgiving. If you're in Pennsylvania, gun season's in full swing. Ohio, first gun season just ended. Same with like Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky. Oh, I guess Kansas gun season's in swing right now. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, still a lot of season left. Mind is going to have to switch. If you're in the South, your best season's probably still lying ahead. If you're in the North, you're going to have to swing to late season mindset, which is bedding and food. And I will tell you that it's going to be much more difficult to find a mature buck here in the next couple weeks. So if you find one, best jump on them pretty quick because it's going to be difficult to punch those tags on a mature buck in the North and the Midwest unless you've got late season food. That's going to be your ticket.
Yeah, and I guess like just hope and pray that some of your bucks make it through, and although inevitably they never do.
Inevitably. Yeah, we still have some tags to punch. So I guess kind of recap, you've got a Kansas tag that you're planning on going back out?
I'd like to.
Question mark?
Yeah, we'll watch the weather. Have you seen anything on Tram since we left?
Just that big 8, and then some. Well, there's been some 1-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, so one of the leases has beans on it, a good food source. So I guess the plan would be, I'd love to see that booner again. I guess he hasn't been there.
Not yet. On scrote too.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
But even if he doesn't, I mean, if we get a cold snap and if Margie's willing to go out with me, I think she is. So we'll probably fly.
It's so rustic. You'll love it. It's farm country.
So I told her. I said, you wanted a cabin in the woods?
There's cows, Margie. You love cows.
So we'd probably fly out.
Yeah.
And I'll just condense everything
3
to
or
like
4 day trip.
2 duffs in my bow case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3-4 day trip. And
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's November 22nd right now, so I'm not ready to give it up. I kind of wish I still had my Ohio tag, but I mean, I'm stoked with the deer that I shot. I mean, it's just kind of like, I wish it would never end.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've got I've got a couple deer in Kentucky that I'm still chasing. I don't mind the late season there. Ohio got lots of time because of the season length. I've got a tag in Pennsylvania, but I'll probably let Harlan hopefully shoots one and I'll let him tag one. So yeah, I mean, it's still plenty of season left. I don't mind the late season. I like December hunting, especially if you've got food. Personally, I think if you have a mature buck still around, it gets a little bit easier in December and January because they're just so predictable to go into food. You just watch those major cold fronts and snowy conditions and cold weather, and they're going to be on food, period. The gun season is skill, but it's also so much luck with what those deer get pressured and pushed around. I did pick up a really nice buck on the new Kentucky farm. I've only seen him once, but the fact that he's there is encouraging to me. Probably I don't know, that deer's probably pushing 60s. That 11 point I got on that Kentucky farm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's not over yet. I mean, to be honest, the cool thing about Kansas is it's just fun, man. We had a blast out there at camp, and just being able to sit around and bullshit stories in the evenings with the dads and recap things and have dinner at a table and drink beers and watch Axemen. My dad was like watching Axemen like every freaking day. That's like all he watched. I don't know if it was because he didn't know how to work the Roku remote or like that's just what he was into.
Yeah.
But by the time they left there, like we could have left both dads in the recliners and they'd still be watching Axemen right now. They would not have left.
Nice.
But yeah, it was fun. You know, a little champagne of beers, and we were really on the Coors Banquet.
Nice.
We put a major dent in the Coors Banquet supply in Eureka, Kansas.
We did.
But yeah, it was a good time, and you know, hopefully we'll put in a draw, and maybe we get lucky and draw again next year. That's the hope. If not, we're gonna have to come up with a backup plan for where Deer Camp 2023 will be. But had a good time.
Avoiding public at all costs.
It's tough, man. I mean, I give a lot of people credit. I mean, it can happen. Like this deer was a public land deer, but man, it for sure seemed like the last 2 years. So this was the first year of COVID, 2020, and 21 and 22. Both times that we've hunted significant public, one in Illinois, one in Kansas, it has been mind-boggling how much people traffic there's been.
Well, dude, it's not rocket science. Like these deer, and as somebody who hunts a lot of, probably as much public as I do private, I don't know as much, but I mean, as frequently. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely on it as much. Them deer know. Like, yeah, they don't know where the fence lines are at, but they don't want to be where people are.
No.
Small bucks and does, sure.
They don't care.
They don't care. But the mature bucks pick up on it pretty quick. I mean, even in our farm in Ohio, and we see the same thing in Kansas. The minute that there's, you know, any people on a piece of property, them big bucks don't like it. They leave.
Yep.
The habitat can be as good as either or better. They'll go to worse habitat to get away from people.
Well, and I mean, a doe will drag them through, or their belly will drag them through at some point. But like, if they have the choice, they don't want to be on that stuff. They don't want to be around people. There's a reason that a lot of these big mature bucks are just loners. That's just how their mindset is. And it's hard for people to adapt to that because, you know, the mindset is you want to see deer, right? I mean, I saw 2 deer while I was hunting. One was a shitty 1.5-year-old spike, and this deer. Like, you know, yeah, it's cool to see 5, 10, 15, 20 deer in a night. Most of those mature bucks don't want to see that. You know, if they're chasing and bumping does, for sure. But any other time of the year, especially as we move here into the late season, man, those deer still will be the last to come into the field, and they're going to seclude themselves. They don't want to be around other deer. They're not going to be nosing up to 2-year-old bucks and stuff. They're just loners, and that's how their mind is bent into. And you just have to, you know, pay attention to that. And if your cameras are sitting in rut spots right now, you better change them because you're not going to get shit on them. You got to make that change to late season, you know, mindset of bedding and food. Those rut spots will be dead. By the time you listen to this, they're dying very quickly. So, you know, you still got time left, but you're going to have to adapt. And it's going to get cold, and their bellies are going to be hungry, and you better find the food. That's all it's going to take at this point.
I feel a tangible shift I think it's after Kansas or after that rut hunt every year to it's like it shifts from like, you know, kill to like get them through. Like at this point I'm like, oh, they made it this far. Like,
yeah,
what can I do to I think my standard even like there's 4-year-olds that I would have shot in October, November that at this point I'm like, well,
if he makes it through,
man, they're at this point I'd like to, you know, see if I can get them through.
Yeah. I think there's it'll be interesting. I mean, because if you're listening to this on December 6th, like I said, most of these gun seasons are in full swing or falling out. They're done. You know, take an inventory, see what you got left, and reevaluate your situation. If you're still looking to punch a tag, you may just have to change your expectations. You know, if you were looking to kill a 5-year-old and there are no more 5-year-olds because they got shot during gun season, you're going to have to shoot a 4-year-old if you want to fill your tag. That's just the reality of it. So don't hold out standards. And this is when I usually refer to hunt and ghost, because you may not have seen that deer since, you know, mid-November or the rut, and you're holding out late season that he's going to show up. He could have been dead during rifle season, or he's picked up and completely moved because food sources have changed, you know. And so you start hunting ghost, and boy, the season gets long and depressing real fast here because it's cold and you're not seeing a lot of deer, and you're not seeing the same deer that you were seeing. You know, you got to alter your mindset pretty quickly.
Yeah, the food is critical, man. If you don't have it, them deer,
they're not.
They're going to be where it's pretty critical the whole year, man.
It is. I mean, I've seen it just in places that I hunt. You know, even on my property behind the house in Pennsylvania, adding an acre of food has completely changed my property. The amount of deer I see back there and the amount of bucks I've seen this year. Now, whether they stay or not, I don't know because it's been hammered. But I mean, it's changed the entire property for the better. The same will be with this new Kentucky piece. Like I don't have any food on there, so I've got the same $4, $5 on camera. Well, I drop 50 acres of food on there, it will change. So
100%.
Yeah, it's keep at it though, and I really enjoy seeing a lot of the Instagram comments and people writing us on Instagram on some of the bucks that they're killing and what they're seeing, and we appreciate the support. And we will see y'all next week.
Later.
Take me